You had the Joker origin open.
I do. So
spoiler for this, by the way, the New 52.
Yes.
They've redone the Joker origin, or they've alluded to that he might be a certain thing. So if you haven't read it and you want to read it, skip forward as many minutes as we talk about this.
Yes, you'll know.
Yeah,
you'll just feel it in your heart, okay? So they've decided now the Joker now has an origin.
Yeah.
Or they're exploring more of the Joker's origin, and that in the DC universe there's a character called Vandal Savage, and he's immortal.
Yeah.
Because he was a sort of a Cro-Magnon man, or like a post-Neanderthal kind of man who, well, depending on the version you hear, he either encountered a meteor that had crashed to Earth. He was either struck by the radiation from the meteor, or he inhaled some sort of gases from the meteor, and that made him immortal.
Those are the two comic book origins for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Inhale some stuff, radiation. So, and as a result, he's immortal, and sort of he lives forever, but...
What's living, you know?
Yeah, exactly, when you don't have a lot of friends, you know? He lives forever. Occasionally, like, you know, somebody will stab one of his eyes out or something like that, or one of his organs will wear out. But because he's been alive for 50,000 years, he's got literally thousands of descendants, so he can just essentially surgically remove... He kidnaps somebody, surgically removes their eye or their liver or whatever, and just has it implanted in him, and he just takes it on and it works.
Okay.
So...
It's very lucky.
Yeah, it is very... And so his arch nemesis is the Immortal Man, who's another guy...
Yeah.
Who...
They met the same meteor?
I think they met the same meteor, yeah. So they've sort of been battling down through the centuries. And I think the premise now is they're saying that Ra's al Ghul, also immortal in the DC universe, he's not as immortal, is he?
He's pretty immortal.
He's only a couple of thousand... Well, he's only a couple of thousand years old. And what's a couple of thousand years, mate? Am I right? Nothing. He's a baby. But anyway, he's kept immortal through the Lazarus Pits.
Yeah.
And apparently the part of the chemistry of the Lazarus Pits comes from that meteor.
Yeah,
So that's
okay.
And so now that they've expanded that further, and they're saying that the Joker also encountered the radiation of the meteor at some point before Gotham was a city.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly the time frame, but I would assume he's younger than Ra's al Ghul, so maybe a couple of hundred years or something like that. So
there's some old artworks which apparently are unaltered that he's in.
Right.
But I think there's a very good chance that this will be left ambiguous.
Yes.
As into whether, because people don't like a solidified Joker origin.
No,
I don't like it either.
I was going to say that as far as this goes, they're alluding to the fact that he is immortal, but it only comes into being when he's been, like, horrifically injured.
Yeah.
So, for example...
So you can't tell if you test him genetically.
Yeah, he just seems normal. But, for example, in the 80s, there was the Death in the Family storyline where he killed the second Robin.
Yeah.
And then he was seemingly killed in a helicopter crash, like a huge fire explosion that nobody could have escaped from, but then he came back, obviously. Yeah. And it's implied that's because... this power activated, and then
even though this is New 52, it's different.
Exactly.
Though all that stuff kind of still happened. In New 52.
So traditionally speaking, the Joker doesn't have an origin. Like there's a lot is implied. We must have discussed this before.
There's the Red Hood one.
Yeah,
obviously.
it's like his first appearance in the sort of the 40s, he just started showing up and killing people, which is sort of quite accurate. The Nolan Dark Knight.
Yeah,
like he's taken a lot of cues from a lot of different DC media.
Yeah.
He just shows
when
up.
Batman has to get rid of that bomb, just
exactly.
in the 66
just
movie.
running down piers, just non-stop. And so, he has no particular origin, like the Killing Joke.
Yeah.
It's implied that every time he tells the story of his origin, it's different, and we don't know if that's because it's just he does that to amuse himself, or because he doesn't remember where he came from, kind of thing. And also, like the 89 Batman movie, it's implied he has a sort of a military origin, because, he says, you kill 1,000 soldiers, nobody cares, it's all part of the plan kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it is...
Wait, the 89 Batman? Does that have a name?
Oh, no, in the 89 Batman, he's like a special forces...
Oh, really? Is that in the novelization or something?
No, it's in the movie as well.
Really?
You see his sort of data file. Batman digs it up. He's Jack Napier.
Is that before or after the Let's Get Nuts scene?
And he had us. Right shot! Now you want to get nuts! Come on! Let's get nuts.
That's after the Let's Get Nuts scene, I think. Yes. But yeah, he's like... he's a sort of a special forces soldier, and he specializes in chemical weapons and things like that, which is why he can build all the the Smilex, the poison gas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think Nolan's taken that element as well and sort of built this ambiguous origin. But yeah, so Joker in the comic books especially has always had this very ambiguous origin, and I think that's part of the appeal.
Yeah.
Like, if you take, say, Marvel's Wolverine, he always had quite an ambiguous origin, and that's how he maintained, I think, his popularity, because he was kind of this cool character. You could imagine
It's
whatever.
like that mysterious kid at school who comes. You're like, where's this guy from?
Where'd he get that cool leather jacket?
Yeah.
Did he
He's
get it
like, he's from the suburb over.
Yeah, but then when Wolverine's origin is eventually revealed, it's kind of
It's fine. Yeah,
whatever
I
you
like
built.
it,
Yeah,
but
it's fine, but whatever you built up in your head is better than that.
Yeah,
because your brain just goes, "Oh, fills in the blank. He must have had this amazing backstory," kind of thing. We didn't really get to his origin until maybe the 90s when he got like a proper solo series.
Yeah,
and we saw bits and pieces. We knew in the 80s that he was part of Weapon X, and then in the 90s, we discovered that Weapon X had like a special forces team, and he was on that, and Sabretooth and a couple of other team members.
Yeah.
And that,
the guy from, the Will.i.am guy from Black
Yeah,
Eyed Peas.
exactly. Kestrel. Thank you, Kestrel. But all we learned from that is that he had a lot of fake memories built over his real memories. So we did, even though we knew that he had that memory alteration, we didn't actually know his origin. And it took until was the series just called Origin? I think maybe.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was a relatively recent one, like maybe 2008.
And then we discovered that he's James Howlett from Canada, and he's a little Lord Fauntleroy, fancy sickly lad, and he runs off into the forest. Fa la la la.
And that's what they did in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the Joker. Yeah.
The Joker.
So
now, in that scene, in that panel that you had open, you see the Joker swimming underwater.
Yeah.
Do you reckon there's any implication there that he can breathe underwater, or do you think
hope
that's
not.
just?
I absolutely no.
Because it didn't occur to me until just then when I'm looking at it, because I read that the other day.
I think that's just a terrifying visual.
That
it really
is a terrifying visual.
Like, imagine you were underwater. No, I think that's just somebody is swimming and they get caught in a rip.
Yeah.
And they're trying to escape, and then you see you wouldn't want to see the Joker swimming
That's
at you.
worse than a shark.
It's much worse than a shark. Look at his little cap. It's weird. Anyway, I think my hope is that they keep it very ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you see him near a meteor. He's at a meteor appreciation society.
He's eating dinner off a meteor.
He's eating dinner off a glowing meteor. Exactly, but because there are pictures of like a Joker-esque character from, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say that he was inspired by that or something like
yeah.
that. Like, there's a lot of ways to make it vague.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of like maybe there's kind of a supernatural element to this. But if you put it out there and say it, I think it kind of ruins the magic of the Joker.
It does. Absolutely.
The murderous magic.
Well, because they redid the Red Hood gang for the New 52.
Right, okay.
And it was again left ambiguous as to whether the leader of the Red Hood gang was the Joker. It was like it could have been, it might not have been. So I think this is the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
We'll find out in the next issue or the next couple issues. Anyway, but yeah, have you read that entire run?
I'm not up to date.
Yeah, you should totally.
I will.
Or don't, whatever. Just do it.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
Don't tell me what to do or don't do. Wait, which side am I on?
I don't know.
I'll do it.
Red hot comic